Alright everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today is a DIY video for the beginners. I'm going to show you guys how to properly jack up the NSX, because if you're a new owner, it's not as straightforward as other Hondas that you may be used to, like a Civic or Integra or something like that, or any other 90s Honda, because those other Hondas typically have a center front jack point and a center rear jack point. The NSX does not have either one of those. There's only 3 jack points per side. Let me show you. One is right behind the front wheels, one is right in front of the rear wheels, and one is right in the center where the door ends. So let's take a look. Here's the first jack point. The center one is longest, and the rear, you can see, is right there. What that means is it's a little bit more difficult to do certain things. So if you wanted to only jack up the front end, for example, for other 90s Hondas, you would just use the front center jack point, jack it up, put 2 jack stands up front, you're done. For this car, you don't have the luxury of that. You basically use the center jack point for the jack. And so in doing that, you have to, essentially what I'm getting is I typically put my car up on 4 jack stands each and every time, which is a pain. But if you were to jack up, if you were to only want to put jack stands in the front, for example, what would happen is you jack up from the middle, put a jack stand right here, and then what happens is you're going to have to lower the car onto a single jack stand. And what's going to happen is your car is going to be like teeter-tottering, right? Because this side's going to be up and your rear right is going to be on the ground, but your front right and rear left is basically going to be kind of teeter-tottering because your car is only balancing on 2 spots until you jack it up on that side, and then put a jack stand in the front. So I don't typically like for my car to teeter-totter like that. So what I do, and especially since you're going to have to jack up one side anyway, I just put it up on 4 jack stands pretty much all the time, and whether I want to work on only the front, only the rear. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that. I'm going to put it up on jack stands, and it's going to be on all 4. And I'm also going to show you how to get it up very high, because you're going to have to kind of do it in 2 stages to be safe. You can do it in one go. I'll show you what I mean. But anyway, I want to get it up very high because I want to do some videos underneath the car, and I want to get my full body and have a nice bit of area to work on. So let's jump into it. All right, let's start with a few reminders. If you work by yourself, like I do all the time, and you don't want to, maybe you don't own a tool, a power tool strong enough to remove your lug nuts, or you're like me and you don't want to hold the power tool on it and have that loud noise waking up your kid or waking up the neighbors, don't forget to crack your lug nuts before you jack up the car. Very important. And if you're jacking up an NSX in particular, don't crack the lug nuts too much, right? Because like I'm gonna have to crack both sides, but I'm gonna be jacking up one side and it's gonna be leaning on the side that's basically has loose lug nuts. So you don't wanna loosen the lug nuts too much. You just wanna barely crack it so that you can take it off later on with a tool or without, because the wheels are gonna spin, right? Unless you have a friend to hold the brakes for you. But if you're by yourself, the wheels are going to spin. So you basically just want to crack it enough to be able to take the lug nuts off yourself later maybe with a power tool, where it won't make that much noise because the lug nuts are not on that tight. But yeah, you just don't loosen them to the point where there's only a few threads on them left, because then when you jack up your car and you put all that weight on the wheels with the loosened lug nuts, you don't want to break a stud or drop your car on the ground, things like that. The other thing I want to point out is it's good to have, for jack stand safety, sometimes to have larger jack stands. Like I said, I'm wanting to put my car up high to get underneath it. So if you have a regular 3-ton jack stand like this, look at this. If I wanted to get the car up this high, you're going to have to use your 3-ton jack stand almost fully extended. I'm not as comfortable with it like that. It's very wobbly, and it's not recommended. So I do have 6-ton jack stands on hand where it's barely extended by only 1 notch to get to the same height as a 3-ton at almost full extension. So that's a tip for you guys for jack stand safety. All right, we're going under the center jack point. I did loosen my lug nuts about a quarter turn, and we're just gonna go up until I can get my jack stands underneath the car. Another word of caution, if you're like me and you need ramps, make sure that the tire is going to make firm contact with the ramp as you're jacking up. So the opposite side of your jack, again, you want to make sure that as the car tips, it's not going to fall off of your ramps. Mine is a little sketchy right now, but I think it'll be fine. You may want to move the ramp out further to make sure the tire makes enough contact patch with the ramp so it doesn't fall off as you jack it up. The tough part about using tall jack stands is you have to get the car up really high. And if you're slightly OCD, you're going to want to do it in 2 stages. Meaning, if you're using 3-ton jack stands, you may need to raise the car up into an intermediary position, then jack up the other side to that same intermediary position, then go back to the original side or the second side and jack it up even further from that point. Because what's going to happen is when I lower this jack stand is going to make contact with the chassis right here. And if you're OCD, you don't want to damage your car, then you might not want that to happen. But in order for this pinch weld to make contact with this jack stand, the other side is going to need to come up first. So at a certain point, it's going to be contacting the chassis first. I'll show you what I mean by that right now. So I'm going to go ahead and lower the car right now. So we're fully off of the jack. And you can see here that the car is not on the jack stand on the center pinch weld yet, front or back. So again, I'm not so particular about this on my car, but it's not going to make contact. The center of the jack stand is not going to make contact with the pinch weld until I jack up the other side. So let's go ahead and do that right now. I'm going to show you guys this side as I jack up the opposite side. So you can see now that it is making contact. So I'm going to continue to jack up this side. All right, now I'm going to want to lower it very slowly. Make sure the jack stands are lined up with the pinch welds. So my garage is a little bit uneven. So this is not even touching. But we have 3 jack stands that are touching. So that one, and this one are touching. So either because the garage is uneven or because my chassis is a little twisted. I think it's my garage. And then if you want to be extra secure, shake the car. It's better if your car falls off on the ground, damages your car, as opposed to falling off the jack stands on you and killing yourself. So I hope you guys can see what it takes to jack up the NSX, specifically what it takes to jack up the NSX to a high position. You can see that it's making good contact. And so another note on jack stands, you saw that it basically pivoted the chassis from getting on this point to flat once I jacked up the other side. That's also why I feel a lot more comfortable with the 6-ton jack stands versus the 3-ton, because the chassis balancing on this tiny point and then laying down onto the center, I don't feel comfortable with a wobbly jack stand like this. It's a lot more safe with a big footprint of the 6-ton and the fact that this piece isn't fully extended. It's a lot stronger and more secure. So tip for you guys to jack up the NSX. So now we have the car on all 4 jack stands. Again, shake it to make sure. Again, if a car falls off, better not on you. So be safe, be secure, make sure your jack stands are all in the right position, that the jack points are in the center of each jack stand, and that you are safe to work on your car. And then of course, if you want to take your car off jack stands, you're going to do it in reverse procedure. If you raise your car up in 2 stages, you're going to want to lower it in 2 stages, meaning raise the car up off these jack stands, lower it to an intermediary position on your jack stands, and then lower the other side also to the intermediate position, and then back and forth until you get the car back on the ground. Of course, always make sure your emergency brake is functioning and working. Use wheel chocks if you need to keep the car from rolling. And never do this on a slanted surface. Do not recommend jacking up any car on any slanted driveway because that just introduces all sorts of problems and is very dangerous. So I think that'll do it for this video. Again, let me know if any questions or comments in the comment section below. But see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.